center of the universe for us for a few days in such an awesome location. I know I'll be back next year. When we move into what is pulse centers, I guess I need a remote here. I like to present it in perspectives. You know, a lot of times our medical system is based on anatomy. It's based on what we can see, how well can we see it, and then can we measure the function. Just because something's invisible doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And here I have to give you the introduction to what we've been talking a lot about is photons. If we look at the body, what are we trying to do? We're trying to create energy, hold it, and produce work from it. So I like to ask these types of questions just to make us aware that, you know, the invisible is real. And if we can tangibly start to capture it and create energetic environments for the body, the intelligence of the body comes online, starts to do things along the line of communicating and organizing differently, and we see the function of the body improve. We look at it as cellular exercise. It's simply optimizing the cells in the body to do what they're designed to do. If you're interested in research, I'm going to encourage you to pick up one of these. It's got some really nice anecdotal cases. There's also pmfinfo.com that we maintain at Pulse Centers that has some of the cutting-edge research that's out there that's applying pulsed electromagnetic fields in all applications. I didn't really introduce myself or the company. So it's called Pulse Centers, and we work with really an energy device that emits a high intensity but very short duration magnetic field. So this is an energy environment for the body. My name is Tom Butler. I guess I want to invite everybody to continue this conversation with me, so I'll actually give you my phone number here at the end. So when we move into what are we actually looking at and the laws that govern the body, we start to do some things differently. I'm not the first one to talk about photons. So photons are here, present. Our body's trying to absorb them and hold them. They're a measure of energy. And they move through the room right now, any space that we're in. They're either absorbed or reflected. We know that our body loves to absorb them. When we look at disease, we know that prior to the onset of disease, we have a decrease of photons in our body. We've become disconnected, or we're no longer creating that energy in our body. When we look at that lack of energy, we can associate this with several things, but age is the most prominent one. As we know, we get older. We not only do, we have less of an ability to actually create the photons, but then we also don't hold them as well either. So we have to look at the body, how it's compartmentalized, how it's organized. Embryology is a good example of this. When we're young, we have this metabolism that takes us from basically a one-cell organism into somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 100 trillion cells. That's the origami of our DNA. So it takes a huge metabolism to do that. Once we're kind of through that stage, we're in our reproductive years. After that, we're in our maintenance years. So how well do we unfold, and how well do we prepare ourselves to pass on our genetic blueprint, and then how well do we maintain ourselves to do work later in life? It's all energy dependent. So when we look at folks like Jerry Tennant, healing is accomplished through photons. Jerry Tennant is a medical doctor in Grapevine, Texas. He wrote a great book named Healing is Voltage. We've talked about the microsystems of the mouth and the body being connected, and vessels and collaterals. It's all an energy potential. If we don't have voltage in the fluids of our body, we basically can't dissolve oxygen into the fluids of our body. If we don't have oxygen, we have no cellular efficiency. Our efficiency literally is somewhere in the neighborhood of 19 times better than if we don't have oxygen. It's actually negative if we don't have oxygen. So when we look at how we can work with the body we're changing our viewpoint into looking at, directed and intelligent, not only just energy, but information. Great doctor, Dr. Fitz-Albert Pop, I'm guessing he's about 80 years old, but he's one of the prime biophysicists that's been putting together these new ideas. He looks at DNA, and we all know DNA as an informational part of our body. It's base pairs. This is our blueprint. He starts to look at it and says, well, DNA is actually a vessel. It's designed to hold photons. One molecule of DNA is actually holding 1,000 photons. That's a pretty cool idea. Let's just say maybe our DNA is holding half the photons it should because we're running low on energy. Does our DNA start running different gears and pathways? I think some of your key epigeneticists would agree, yes. Energy in our body is going to dictate how our DNA responds. When we look at well-being, this is what we're really trying to create. And coming together in this group, we realize we're not only approaching the challenges, but we want to move into that next phase of actually creating health. And if we do all of these great things and just get out of being sick, that's the first step. We're on the road. But can we actually move into health creation? Can we optimize and build resiliency in our body? So when we look at this invisible energy equation playing out, what are the things that nourish it in the body? And these dictate our form and function, but we look at exercise, raw food, good clean spring water, magnetic fields. These are very simple things, but when we start to focus on them, we can get some profound results. So our method is very simple. We're creating a short duration magnetic field of high intensity. It potentializes the cells. Their transmembrane potential rises. We know that transmembrane potential is a measure of how healthy a cell is and its work capacity. One thing when we look at cells, we can estimate that we have some 100 trillion cells. When we move into how do those cells communicate, it becomes some version of 100 septillion lines of communication. That's energy dependent. So we're looking at, can we get the cells to communicate again, and then can we get them to organize? We have to remind ourselves that we're hardwired to heal. If we can potentialize the body in a way that it'll start communicating again, it's going to move back to what we have as a divine blueprint. The only way we move away from that is if we're injured or we have enough low energy that our body says, well, we've got to go over here and run on some less than optimal gears for a while until we can get back to an energized state. When we work with PEMF at Pulse Centers, we're doing a session. Sometimes sessions are only a few minutes. That might be all it takes to resolve a lack of voltage or some stasis and stagnation that's been in the body for a while. Once we've potentialized that and it's moving again, the body takes its cue and does what it needs to do and heal the area. Other times we're working for a longer period of time at lower intensities to kind of trickle charge the body and see if we can get it to hold more energy. We can work on the whole body or just one part of the body at a time. If we know we have enough voltage in the body and then we can follow that up with the right raw materials, we can heal just about anything. And again, that's Jerry Tennant. So the potential here, we're working on what we can become. We actually want to look at these as areas that we can optimize. I'm not going to get into specific disease states, but if we trace any disease state back, we can usually land in one of these areas that's affecting us significantly, but it's a very simple thing that the body's designed to do, and somehow it's become dysfunctional. So we know we can optimize the stress and emotional health just by repairing cellular damage, increasing the voltage, if you will. Relaxation and sleep. If we're not sleeping and relaxing, going into that anabolic phase, we're not rebuilding our body. So we'll eventually be in more of a decay cycle than we would be a health cycle. Circulation. This is the fluid body that gets all the work done. If our blood is not flowing, we're basically not going to nourish the body in the way that it should be. And when we look at the potential of our blood and the viscosity of it, those are the important things that allow us to not only carry nutrition, but hold oxygen. These are the highways of our life. Brain and focus. We know that Our brain is a huge consumer of not only calories but oxygen. So if we have a degeneration there, we're going to manifest that in the body. Bones are a real dense organ structure. When we use PEMF, we know that we positively impact the bone structure. Interestingly enough about bones, it's actually more of a collagen matrix. If we had to come up with, maybe three things that become really important in the body, it would be DNA, our collagen structure, and then maybe something involving our environment. If we can get those right, then we can usually start to heal. When we move into an energy level, it's also not, it's not only good for performance, but also recovery. So this is functional metabolism. And somewhere I read we've got about 85% of Americans that have some type of functional metabolic disease. So we have to address all these things and basically give the body everything it needs at once. And that's where we get to start some results. What I want to do is invite you to try Pulse Center's technology. I'll be here as long as I can this afternoon to provide that for you. I do want to give you my number if you want to write it down. I'm happy to continue this conversation. Again, my name is Tom Butler. My number is 720-443-9554. I'm glad I smartly put it at the bottom there so you can take a picture and grab it there. If we're going to look at maybe one of the things that comes out of this is we want to look at these new medical canons as a foundation for what we want to do.